Hey everybody, Bill in Virginia, and back with the N-scale factory build. So picking up where I left off in the last video, and I've gotten quite a bit more done. I've got the roof materials sort of cut to size. It's not glued on yet, it's just sitting on the buildings. I will glue that on, put roofing materials on later, but first I will put in windows, which the kit came with some acetate and what looks like a bug screen. And I glued that onto the acetate. That's out in the garage drying, so we'll see how that looks. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to use like a battleship gray just to add in and around the window openings to make it look like window sills. Do that all across it. Then I'm going to get out my boxcar red paint. And all of these paints that I'm going to put on the wood kit are going to be oil-based. You put in water-based, you have a chance of it warping, and this is thin wood. I don't want that to happen. So I will paint that up and put roofing materials on, paint up the dowels. I did drill out a little bit just to make them look, like they're hollow cylinders. I will paint those up. I'm going to use X-Acto knife to etch those a little bit to score them like they're metal pipe for metal smokestacks. And we'll see how this looks. But I think it's going to fit into that area pretty good. And then right here is what I call my very first scratch build. So this was leftover materials that came in this kit, just bits and pieces. So I decided I would make an outside storage area, but big enough to, put in some trucks and other vehicles for service. So not detailed on the inside by any stretch of the imagination. And I've got to do the roof on it yet, but you know what? For an N-scale little building, this is going to work pretty good where the factory sits, because I got a space for it. And I'll show you that next time I take this out to the layout, which at that point it should be fairly well done. So more to come on this build. All right, doing another test fit of the structure out here. You can see I've got it painted. I was going to go with a red for the side of the building, but as I started to use the gray to kind of paint sills, you know what, it bled all over in that wood. And it looked okay, so I decided, well, you know what? That's what I'm going to go with. And, it looks pretty good. I will weather it with some light chalks to kind of lighten the color a little bit. Right now, the roof is drying in the house for the different segments. I used some of the tin roofing that I got in an eBay purchase a while back. So I've super glued that onto the cardstock and just kind of letting that sit. Be able to glue that on tomorrow, as well as glue in the windows. I got to cut those and put them in too. But you can see where I put the little outbuilding that I scratch built. The main building is here. I moved the plastic building from the mine kit over beside the the silos, the tipple, whatever you want to call that. So I think this is going to work out pretty good. I get the roof on, I get the windows in, and I will call it good for construction, and then I can start doing scenery around it. So this is coming along pretty nice. And the windows are in place. I will let the super glue dry on those a little bit. Next step, the roof. And I have sprayed the top of those with dull coat already. They're drying out in the garage, so I can bring them in, do a little bit of painting on the underside, and then I can put those in place. And then I can weather with chalks, and then I'm going to call it good for these buildings. I can put them on and start doing scenery. Well, the roofs are on, and everything is lightly weathered with chalks. So I like how that looks. Next step will be to paint up the smokestacks and put it back on the layout, and then start doing scenery. Smokestacks are done, so time to put this on the layout. And let's see what we get. So here is how this scene is going to look. I've got buildings in position, the stacks in position, the plastic tanks in position, the pieces of that Walther's mine kit in position. So what I'm going to do is I've got wood fencing kit, so I'm going to put that in here. I am going to put a little gate like right in here so that I can have the access road to the backside coming through here. So it gives it access for the fishermen too, so that they can go down and fish in the little ponded area in the stream when the water is not flowing. So this is going to work. This is going to fill that gap nicely. I've got painting to do on the plastic tanks and the plastic bin and tipple here, but it's coming along. So I will get the other pieces painted up. I'll get that fence prepped, get that in place. That'll be the next segment in this video, and then I will start doing ground cover. But I will go on the other side and just let you take a quick peek on how that looks from the other side of the layout. So from this side of the layout, I think it's going to be effective as well. You can definitely tell I've got some sort of a manufacturing process going on in that position. The building fills the space, does not overcrowd the area, nor does it look too bulky compared to everything else that's on that side of the layout. So I think that's going to work. All right, everything is painted. So I've got the tanks all painted. I've got the tipple storage / dump area, whatever you want to call that, finished up. I'll go to the other side and we'll take a look at it from there. All right, on this side, you can see everything painted and weathered up using chalks as well as acrylic paints. Makes it look like it's been there for a very long time. Fits the area really well. Be able to put a gravel parking lot access area to the front where I can park some cars, have some trucks, have some materials. Coming across over in this way, I've still got to do the fence. The fence is in the house, and I'm going to give it sort of a grayish white wash, make it look weathered before I put it in place. And then I can do ground cover and more gravel and dirt towards the back, storage area, pallets, drums, all the other goodies you see around an industrial area. And I do have one more thing I'm going to have to do to the building before I put it in place, is that if you look right there up under the roof line, I did not do a good job cutting. Looks like one side of the building is a little bit higher. However, the roof kind of lays pretty good, so I miscut something there. I'm going to have to add a filler strip, but I will paint it and glue it in there so that it looks like it belongs in that spot, just to fill in that gap under the roof line. That won't take too long. I've got enough material, I can do it, and unless you're really looking at it, you probably won't be able to notice it. So I'll get that done this weekend, but I'm going to work on the fence for a little while and get that going. And the fence with gate is installed. That's a Bar Mills little fence kit in N scale. Works really nice. Fun and really easy wood kit to put together. So quite a bit of a difference from what I was doing earlier in the week. So what I'm going to do next is that filler strip, and I've got an idea on how that's going to look. So I've got to scrounge through my scrap box for a few little details I'm going to add to that. That'll be the next segment. So this is how I filled that gap near the roof. Added just a little filler strip and then some 90-degree angle tubing, as it were, off of an old kit I had to make it look like I've got some vents coming out of that side of the building. So that covered it up pretty good, and it looks appropriate for this structure. So the kit building piece is now done. Painting is now done. Now it's time to actually do some scenery. And this one should go reasonably quick. I've got to just find the right color of ground cover that I'm interested in for the parking areas and the little drive in the back. The rest of it's just basic ground cover. Glue some of it down, some of it will just sit on top of the other. But should be able to wrap this up pretty quick, and then we can do a little switching in this area, along with the feedlot. So that should be in the next segment. Should have the scenery pretty well done. Basic ground cover is now in. I opted to use a darker grayish red ballast in this area for where the parking lot's going to be, and then just some basic ground cover where the building's going to be sitting. I got the ground cover around the different buildings, around the fence line, around the tanks in the background. Obviously took the wood structure off and just sort of set them to the side until the ground cover dries a bit. I do not want it absorbing a lot of glue and potentially warping the wood. I've got to come back in with a soft bristle brush once glue sets and kind of clean off the roofs and the top of the tanks. Tanks are glued in spots. Stacks are glued. I put down a fair amount of glue to make sure that the smaller details, the tipple does not move. That building, the long plastic one does not move. That's all glued in place. Only the wood ones will not be glued down. So let this dry for a couple of hours, and then I will come back, set the buildings on, then go back around, do some additional detailing, add a little bit more ground cover, maybe a couple of small trees in a couple of areas where it makes sense. And this scene will be about done, and then I'm going to run some trains, do some switching here. More to come. One other thing that I do while I'm waiting for it to dry is I did put the building back in where it's going to sit, and then kind of wiggle it a little bit so that I get the impression of the outline of the building in the material. You can kind of see where those glue lines have popped up. That way, when I do put the building in, it's going to sit reasonably flush. It's already going to have its base in a sense of where it's going to rest. I know it fits. You can see there I did the same thing with the little outbuilding too. So, once that alt cures, I have a good spot just to kind of set it in. It'll kind of hold it in position. But just makes it easier so that I don't have any unexpected high areas or places that I've got to knock down or try to dig out, so that the building sits reasonably flush with the ground right from the get-go. All right, basics are done on this scene. The ground cover is dry. I came back in, planted a little bit of grass, a little bit of bushes in a couple of areas here. Added some other details, some vehicles in and around the parking area. Really happy with how the little garage area turned out. It's perfect size for N scale, and I just eyeballed that. A few vehicles have been added. What I'm going to do now, well, actually not now, but later tonight, is I'm going to paint up some pallets, some drums, and some crates to add a little bit more detail in and around there. As well as I can put a bit more details over here and a few other areas in this spot with some of that stuff. But I like how this turned out. It looks pretty good to my eye. It fills in the space. It's not an overpowering building. It's a 2-story, so about the same height as the little freight depot. So you know what? I think I've got a local freighter that's going to be coming in here soon. It's bringing in an empty for the stockyard and a couple of hoppers open top for this industry. So you know what? Let's do some switching.